Albanese. Ehud Yaari is the Leifer International Fellow at the Washington Institute, and it's a delight to have him back with us in the studio. Lovely to see you again.
Pleasure.
Is that the right thing for the President to do, to intervene in a judicial matter?
Well, I think that the situation now is that the wheels of justice in Israel are going sometimes very slow. In this case, very, very slow. The reason being that a certain ultra-Orthodox group is trying to allow Mrs. Leifer more time in the court, and they are making all sorts of appeals against the psychiatric panels which have already decided that she is fit to stand trial and therefore be extradited to Australia. The President cannot intervene, and I think he made it clear everywhere here during his visit in Australia that he cannot intervene. He is just trying to urge the prosecution to speed up the review by the court of the latest appeal by the lawyers of Mrs. Leifer. I don't think there is any doubt that at the end she will be found by the Supreme Court fit to stand trial and extradited here.
Things had become, I wouldn't say tense between the two nations, but probably they needed a little smoothing over. How important has this visit by the President been?
I think that the President is trying to correct a mistake that, in my humble opinion, he has made last year when there was a date for a visit to Australia, and then he got an invitation by President Putin to come on that same date to Russia. And he chose to say yes to Mr. Putin before he called the Governor General here. I thought at the time, I think so now, it was a grave mistake. The President, I believe, understands it. And he came now in order to correct the impression, because that was not his intention. As you know, Israel has so many interests with Russia, mainly because the Russian Air Force is next door in Syria. So the President wanted to demonstrate...
It seemed like a pressing issue for him at that point.
To go to Russia, yes. Although we have to remember the President in Israel, like the Governor General here, doesn't run the policy. The Prime Minister does. And in fact, 2-3 days ago, I think, the Prime Minister was talking to Mr. Morrison about more urgent issues, and they reached an agreement.
Talking about running policy, it's confusing as to who's running the government in Israel at the moment. And of course, there is another election, the third election on Monday. Is somebody going to be able to form a new government?
Unfortunately not. I think what we see now is the two opposing camps, the center-right and the center-left, are running neck to neck into another tie. That is, I can't see at the moment any of the blocs getting the necessary majority of 61 out of 120 members of our parliament, the Knesset. So we had a little shift over the past week. I think Mr. Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, is gaining a bit. He has now, according to the polls, something like 57, 58 votes. It's not enough for him. His rival, the ex-chief of staff, Major General Gantz, cannot hope to have the 61. They cannot agree on having a national unity grand coalition again. So Israel may face the need to go to a fourth election.
But yet, what is going to break this impasse?
There are two options. One option is that there will be a defection from Mr. Netanyahu's camp by the ultra-Orthodox parties that basically cannot afford to stay out of the coalition government because they need to serve their constituencies. The second option is that Mr. Gantz, if he has the chance, may go for a minority government, which can be then supported from outside the coalition by the Arab unified list, that is the representatives of the Arab Palestinian minority in Israel. This is difficult because they are saying that they cannot support a government which will have to retaliate in the Gaza Strip against missiles, 90 so far this week, fired against Israel. So it's a very complex situation. I saw that before you were covering Malaysian politics, much more complicated than that.
It seems like that. Has the peace plan that was proposed by the White House played into this election at all?
Yes. You have a situation in which both candidates, Mr. Gantz and Prime Minister Netanyahu, support the Trump plan. And we have to remember something which is extremely important. Everybody knew, including President Trump and his team, that the Palestinians were going to say no. How did they know? The Palestinians said no already 2 years ago, that they were not going to take a look at the plan. The plan was designed to be presented to the Arab states so as to ignite a dialogue, an open dialogue, formal dialogue between Israel and the Arab states over resolving the conflict with the Palestinians, even if the Palestinian Authority is absent, it refuses to sit to the table. So what we can say is that the Trump plan is dead upon arrival as a basis for solution, but the process it aspires to trigger is very much there.
Interesting indeed. Bernie Sanders looks like he's gathering momentum to potentially be the Democratic nomination for president. What might he mean for Israel-US politics and relations?
He says he's a great supporter of Israel, but he's very critical of Israeli policies. I believe he represents the extreme left-wing view of the American political spectrum regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I think he fails to understand the basic point, which is the problem, as the Prime Minister of England, Tony Blair, says, is not what kind of a solution you find, but whether the Palestinians are really do really intend to sit to the table and negotiate. Mr. Sanders will represent, from an Israeli point of view, no good news. And I believe that the view in Israel is that Mr. Sanders cannot defeat President Trump. And people like Prime Minister Netanyahu would say, that's good, let's stay.
Because he's been a good friend of Trump has been a good friend of Netanyahu,
Absolutely.
without a doubt. We'll leave it there. Ehud, lovely to have you with us. Thank you.